Tim is joining us via a live link, and thank you so much for your time, Tim. I know it's late in Barbados where you are now, but it is great to see you. Success and Tim are never far from each other, and I wondered if you could start off by giving us the 90-second Allbirds story.
Yeah, well, of course I will, Jack. Thank you very much for having me. And just as a former All White, having just caught up on the news today with the All Whites walking out of the game against Qatar, I feel like I should just comment on that briefly and just say how proud I am of those boys. I actually played with Michael Boxall. He is a man of great character, and it would have been easier to keep playing, much harder to walk off. So well done for a group of New Zealanders standing up on the world stage. And also thank you for putting up a photo of a much younger version of me, Jack. It makes me feel good. And Allbirds was founded in an apartment in Cuba Street a long time ago, circa 2008. I was playing for the Wellington Phoenix at the time, dreaming of going to a World Cup with New Zealand. And I was reading a magazine one day about the decline of the wool industry in New Zealand, and saw an opportunity in footwear that's traditionally made out of not very nice materials made from barrels of oil and not very nice leathers, to actually introduce merino wool into a shoe. That was the concept. And then it was just a short matter of about 7 or 8 years of trying to work out how to do that, that culminated in a professor telling me it was one of the worst ideas that he'd ever seen at business school after I'd retired from sport, and urged me to put it on Kickstarter so that it could fail quickly and I could get on with my life. And I took him up on that challenge. And with the help of my brother and $700 and a family friend's farm on Grays Road in Pahatanui, just north of Wellington, I shot a Kickstarter video, and that was really the beginning. Before my mum could even buy a pair, we'd sold $120,000 in 4 days, and that was really the beginning. And on the 1st of March, 2016, Allbirds was born in San Francisco, and it was really all very easy. And that's the beginning of the story.
Talk to us a little bit, if you can, Tim, about your sustainability ethos. Was sustainability important to you from an ethical perspective, or did you see value in it from a business perspective?
Allbirds is born from 3 insights. Oftentimes I find innovation is at the intersection of 1 or 2 or even 3 insights. It's very rarely 1. And so you have to kind of overlap these things. And the first one was that shoes were over designed and over logoed, and it was very, very hard to find simple. The second one was that comfort is the number one reason why people buy shoes, but it's often equated with ugliness. So there was an opportunity to intersect a really simple design with the idea of comfort. And leveraging natural materials, there was also an opportunity to make sustainability the central beating heart of a brand that realized that climate change was the problem of our generation, that sustainability was a word that was going to be an enormous business opportunity and lead to a transformation of every product and service that we used every day. And that was really the starting point. But I didn't encounter the purpose of sustainability until 7 or 8 years into the journey of trying to solve the first 2. But equally, without that anchor in purpose, I don't believe the business or brand would be what it is. And it's been there from day one. And it's been the superpower, I think, for us, as we've gone from literally a farm in Wellington to now a public company with north of 1,000 employees, with offices around the world.
We hear businesses and big corporates talk about ESG principles a lot. We hear that word sustainability all the time these days. What do you make of the way the business community thinks and talks about sustainability, and whether or not those practices actually live up to the language?
Well, look, I mean, I think first and foremost, they're talking about it. And when we founded the business in 2016, it was barely a mention. And fast forward now to 2023, not that many years later, and all of a sudden it's in just about every high street shop window. It's embedded in a lot of strategies, and everyone's talking about it, and that's a fantastic thing. And I think generally speaks to the idea that We're in a period of rapid transformation. I believe we're just in the early innings of a real transformation to a sustainable economy, and it's an enormous business opportunity. I think part of the challenge is sustainability is a word like innovation, dare I say it, or even culture, which people use a lot. But if you stop them and said, "Hey, could you just define that for me? What does it really mean to you?" Oftentimes people are caught short a little bit with a really clear definition. And the challenge with a word like sustainability is it's been pushed and pulled in so many different directions as to be almost meaningless at this point. You can make literally plastic promises and recycle plastic, certainly in the context of fashion, and claim that as sustainable. And sure, that's a step in the right direction, no question. But to claim that as truly the North Star of how we should be thinking about this transformation, I think, is to misrepresent how hard it is and what exactly it means. Part of the challenge with sustainability is it means 100 different things to 100 different people. It's about air quality, land quality, animal welfare, recyclability, fair trade labor, and all of those things are important. But I think it's very, very important for you to pick a strategic lane that defines that. And in the case of Allbirds, that is carbon. That's our North Star that we have made our fourth innovation pillar and the focus of how we built the business, how we bonus our executives, how we really drive the business. And I think it's the future of how we'll think about consumer products, certainly is the carbon footprint and how they're made. And so that's certainly part of how we've started to unpack a word like that and make sense of it, Jack.
Did you just say that's how you bonus your executives?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about measuring the carbon footprint of an organization or an individual product or a country, New Zealand versus America, the fashion industry versus the automotive industry, you can break that all down to the smallest number, i.e. the carbon footprint of a pair of shoes, and you can ladder it all up to a global number. And you can equally understand that that number has a cost. And at the moment, that cost is not levied by the government. But for many organizations like Allbirds, increasingly they're paying offsets and they're effectively taxing themselves for that environmental impact. And over time, as more and more people understand that and do that, offsets and the market for offsets will become increasingly expensive, and the cost to do that will go up and up and up. So, the businesses that are realizing this now are now starting to innovate around this number, and in the same way that we're holding, our leadership accountable to revenue and profitability, it's also about how we deliver against reducing the average carbon footprint of the products we put into the market.
Tim, I remember when Allbirds had just launched, I came to visit you in San Francisco. I'd read up on the company, a company making wool shoes. And I thought, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. And I still remember sitting there with you in the office and slipping on an Allbird for the first time and going, oh my God, this looks great and it feels great. But for many people, when they hear those two words together, wool and shoes, they think, surely just from a practical perspective, there's no way that's going to be functional. Do you think there are other opportunities for fiber producers in particular to expand into areas and uses that perhaps most of us have disregarded?
Well, just can I say, you haven't aged a day since we had that conversation. You still look, I don't know, I think it's permanent, Jack, or maybe you're getting younger, I don't know. But look, to bridge from the last question, I think one of the mistakes people made, and at times even internally at Allbirds we've made it, people don't buy sustainable products. They buy great ones. And I don't believe a product can claim to be great today in the world unless it's anchored in the idea of sustainability. But don't confuse the importance of making a car that drives fast and looks good. People don't buy electric cars, they buy objects of desire. And sometimes using words like desire in the context of sustainability and the environment can feel like anathema to living the true spirit of trying to make products with less environmental impact. Don't make that mistake. And it's a really easy one too. You have to look for opportunities where the cars can go faster, drive better, look better, and you need to look for unfair territories. And in the case of footwear, merino wool against your skin, there is no better feeling. Plastic can't compete there. It can create a level of comfort and an experience that other shoes just can't match. And so it was an opportunity, a starting point for us, a wedge, if you will, in. And I think took us a long time, probably 8 years, to work out that comfort was the single best message to deliver our products, which sounds so crazy in hindsight, but it takes a long time to be simple and to be clear. And I think sometimes I see people wanting to talk about the 28 things that something does really well. I think you need to understand the really singular, core, clear message that can convey your value proposition of your product. And when Allbirds is at our best, that's what we're doing. And it's really, really, really hard to be simple and clear. And that's what I would be focused on, is where are the unfair competitive advantages and what's the clear message that I can deliver to my customer that will cut through and be memorable.
It's really interesting that you see us as being at an inflection point of sorts, because I look at the state of fast fashion at the moment, and just to pick on one retailer as an example, the giant Shein, which is producing literally billions and billions and billions and billions of fast fashion products every year. And from a consumer perspective, it is more convenient than ever to see something online, click a button, and have it delivered to your doorstep. How do you see the tension between fast fashion and the huge growth in that space and perhaps more thoughtful, sustainable products like Allbirds?
Yeah, I think it's really important to break that down. The assumption, I think, that's easily made, certainly within the fashion industry, is that consumption is bad. Patagonia, famously, one of the exemplars and an iconic brand, and a brand that Allbirds looks up to, took out an ad in the New York Times famously on Black Friday circa 2012. And they had a photo of one of their jackets and they said, "Do not buy this jacket." And it was a breakout message at the time. And the reality is we've continued to buy jackets from Patagonia and others. And I think the argument that we should buy less is a valid one, but to say it's the solution is a fallacy. It's not. It's too simplistic to say that consumption is bad. Now, I'm not defending the fast fashion aspects of the fast fashion industry. I just think people want ice cream in a moment when this is a game of inches. This is Al Pacino on Any Given Sunday. If you've got the reference, you got to eke this out, and people going to continue to need jackets and t-shirts and everything else that you're innovating and trying to make. It's the onus is on business is to reimagine how those are made with net zero impact, so that we can take an ad out in the New York Times that says, "Do buy this jacket," because we know that it has a net zero with no offsets, a net zero carbon footprint, or even net negative, which by the definition of this, and this is very much a thought exercise at this stage, the more that you buy of that object, the better it might be for the environment. So I think you need to have an intellectual framework, because otherwise you fall very, very quickly into the easy arguments, and there's nothing easy about this. But what I will say is this transformation is full of opportunity for those people that do work this out and understand where the wedges are and understand the consumer sentiment, because we're in a very, very interesting moment.
Tim, I know that for years, Allbirds strived to make a net zero shoe. Can you give our audience a bit of an insight as to what exactly is required if you want to produce a net zero shoe?
Well, you need to partner with an extraordinary organization like New Zealand Merino, like we have over the last number of years, focused on a pilot program around regenerative agriculture, focused on first using technology and leveraging technology to understand out the gate carbon footprint of the fiber. And that's what we've done. A surefire way to not have a friend show up to have a drink with you on a Friday night is to mention the word regenerative agriculture. So just to break that down a little bit, it's really about farming the wool in a way that allows you to inset and lower the carbon score of the fiber. And we've done that with some remarkable properties within the New Zealand Merino network. I think there's now north of 275 properties. I think something approaching 15% of New Zealand's agricultural landmass are involved in a ZQRX pilot program around this. And what they're finding, leveraging technology, is a lot of these farms are getting really remarkable scores just doing what they were doing. They were never given credit for it. And we've been able to use that fiber and work very, very hard on all the other aspects of the carbon footprint around the packaging, around the end of life, around the transport, around how it's made, looking at everything. And we've been now working at this for 5 or 6 years. And we've, with the help of New Zealand Merino and a whole slew of other partners looking at every aspect of the shoe, we've announced that on June 26th in Copenhagen at the Global Fashion Summit, we're going to launch what we believe to be the world's first net zero shoes leveraging that New Zealand Merino fiber. So it's a really, really proud moment for us, but it's an even prouder moment, I think, for this farming network that have adopted and accepted this an incredibly fast period of time.
Yeah, that really is an extraordinary achievement, Tim. Hey, we're almost out of time. Before we go, once you've launched the world's first net zero shoe, give us a sense as to the trajectory for Allbirds going forward.
Oh, it's funny, Jack. This thing started in a Cuba Street apartment, and it's come a long way. And the funny thing about success, you have a little bit of it, and things get harder. And I think we're now playing effectively as a recently public company in the Premier League, if I could indulge a football reference. And we have to prove now, 7 years in, that we can be a great public company, and that's going to take some time. And certainly we've faced some challenges in recent times since that happened. But it's equally a really, really interesting moment where I think everything that we see is this shift in the consumer mindset, where they're starting to demand the provenance of the things that they wear and buy. They're starting to educate themselves and demand to know more about what exactly a word like sustainability is and the claims that businesses are making. I think you're seeing, particularly in Europe, consumer and government authorities starting to demand greater clarity. So I think we're in a period of what I might call the say-do gap, where a lot of people say they care about the topic of sustainability, but it isn't yet translating into a clear set of standards and actions for consumers to understand, and hence they're confused, and many businesses are allowed to make claims. I think in the fullness of time, that gap will narrow, and there's an incredible opportunity, particularly on the consumer side, for the brands and businesses that work out how to make great products with that ethos. And I believe Allbirds is uniquely positioned to take advantage of that. 7 years in to what I believe can be a 100-year journey. I feel very, very fortunate to have come this far, and very, very appreciative of the chance to chat with you today.
Look, we really appreciate it as well. I know how busy you are. It's very generous of you to share your insights with us. Won't you join me in thanking Allbirds founder Tim Brown?